Alright guys, hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. But I have a dentist appointment at 1 o'clock. And I kind of just want to kill time until my Nana comes over and picks me up. So, yeah, but that's not what this rant's gonna be about. As you've probably read by the title, I'm gonna do another rant on vacations. Now, if you guys have followed me prior to April 2022, you know I was on a different channel. I don't want to go into detail on why I had to move channels, but yeah, back in April 2022, I did move from you know another channel to this channel. But since moving to this channel, I don't believe I've done another vacation rant yet, so I figured today would be a good day to do it because it's just something that wears on my mind. And like I said, I am trying to kill time, so I figured today would be a good day. Now, you guys are probably thinking, well, Shauna, if you don't like vacations, just don't go on them, right? Well, I wish it was that simple. But my parents can be pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Insistent. Is that the word I'm looking for? Insistent that I go on certain vacations. Sorry, it's very dusty in here. But yeah. Now, since Florida, we've never really been on a really big vacation, but my parents, mainly my dad, which my mom doesn't live with us anymore, but ever since 2016, my dad brought up how he wanted to take me, my mom, and my brother out to Virginia. This was before my parents separated. And I've talked about how I just do not want to go. Because guys, if you're like me, I know not every person on the spectrum is like this, but it is a common symptom. Like if you're autistic or you relate to a lot of autism traits. I'm not diagnosed with autism, but what I do have is neurofibromatosis type 1, and there is a considerable link between neurofibromatosis and autism. I know my friend Ethan, Purple Ethan, because I have two friends named Ethan, so I call them by their favorite color to avoid confusion. That way, if I just say Ethan, one of them is they're both are gonna be like, which Ethan? Me or the other one? Or that's not me, that's the other Ethan. You know what I mean? So I usually say purple Ethan or green Ethan to avoid confusion. But this is purple Ethan I'm speaking of. He actually also has neurofibromatosis, and he also has autism and ADHD, which I relate to both autism and ADHD, despite not having a diagnosis for either. Now, he actually likes vacations, but some people who are on the spectrum, do not like them because we like to be in our comfort zone, you know what I mean? And we don't want to step too far out of our comfort zone. Like, I understand, baby steps out of your comfort zone, that's good in it. And it should be recommended, although not forced on people, to take baby steps out of their comfort zone. Because the thing is, I don't mind certain vacations. For example, back in December, we went and saw my grandparents on my mom's side. We picked my mom up from our old town of Orange Grove, and we brought her with us to Houston because, they're her parents, my maternal grandparents and her parents. I have always loved going out to Houston and seeing my grandparents on my mom's side. But, some vacations are just too much for me. For example, my dad said he wanted to take us all out to Virginia. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm gonna try my best to get out of the mess, but he has been talking about it since 2016. And he has been talking about taking us out to California since 2019. And I tried to explain myself to him, but it just doesn't work. And I will talk about other reasons why I don't like vacations. And I actually have a story. It was a fight my mom and I got into. Now, you've probably heard about this if you've followed me for years, or if you've watched, or if you've followed my old channel, but I believe it was like May 2017. My mom and I got into an argument because I didn't want to go out to Virginia. And the thing was, at first she was understanding, but one morning, right before my mom and I had our argument, my parents got into an argument about me not wanting to go. Now, I did hear them arguing, but I honestly wasn't sure what they were arguing about. The only thing I can remember my dad saying to my mom is something about the RV and him cooking breakfast for me or something like that. That's all I remember overhearing from the argument. But then he goes to work. Then I don't know if I just stupidly went into my mom's room, or if she saw me come out of my room and she called me in there. I don't remember, but we did get into that one discussion that I was dreading. And that's the thing as well. Like I was actually dreading this whole discussion like for months, like ever since my dad mentioned going out to not California. I'll get into that, but Virginia. Because, like I said, at first my mom was understanding, but my dad manipulated her to be insensitive. And one of the things my dad told her is that families do stuff together. Because my dad is a very, very family-oriented person. Like, if he gets into like an argument with my mom or me, or just in general, he brings out the old F word. Oh, families do stuff together. Oh, families should have to do this. Family, yada yada yada. Families are obligated to, blah blah blah. That family is his. He uses family. He uses the fact that we're family to invalidate our boundaries. And it is important for families to do stuff together. I'm not gonna sit around and deny that, but it shouldn't be at the expense of someone's, boundaries or comfort. Part of being a good family member is respecting boundaries and, compromising on people's needs. Like for example, like let's say, we'll just use my situation as an example. Let's say you have a child, I don't know, maybe they're neurodivergent, maybe there's another reason why they find traveling to really long distances to be overwhelming. But they have parents who want to go on a family vacation. I think a good compromise for that is to, number one, have the family vacation be closer to home. And number two, have the family vacation only last a couple of days. Because, that's another factor. Distance and, the length of the vacation. And the two can go hand in hand as well. Like, if you're taking a vacation halfway across the country, it's going to take an extra day to get there and an extra day to get back. So that alone will add like 2 extra days onto the vacation. My parents have friends in Virginia, and I was born in Virginia, so my dad has it in his head that I should have to go. Not everyone cares about seeing their birth state in person. Or their birthplace, more specifically. I was born at Portsmouth Naval Hospital. My dad wants to take me to Portsmouth because that's where I was born, but I just don't I just don't care. I'm sorry, but I just don't think it's worth having my ass be dragged halfway across the country just to see where I was born, when I can just easily look up Portsmouth, Virginia, or Portsmouth Naval Hospital. Like, come on. He needs to understand that, vacations are not for everyone, or at least really, really long ones. my grandparents, they love, on my dad's side, the one who is picking me up for my dentist appointment, they live in the same town as us, and I don't want to get into this too much because this is a rant about vacations, not my grandparents' dog, but they took in a dog with separation anxiety, 14, 15 years ago. And they love, going on vacations. And again, I'm not going to get into it, but it's a recipe for disaster. And, Nana, my Nana, she also thinks that I should want to go on these long ass vacations, and she thinks my dad should just take me and my brother on these, out to, halfway across the country, to, I don't know, like I said, Virginia, California, Washington. And I'm just not here for it. I wish there was a way I could explain to my grandparents and to my dad that just, this is not for me. That's something people need to understand is really, really big vacations, halfway across the country, they're just not for everyone. If you really feel like you have to take a vacation, then, keep it short and closer to home. Like Houston, for example, it's 8 hours. That might seem like a lot, but it's really not that bad. At least in comparison to the likes of Virginia or to Houston. I don't mind, being on the road, from the morning to the evening, I don't mind that. I just don't want to have to be on the road all day, have to stay in a hotel, then be on the road for another good portion of, a second day, and then have to do it all again when we come back, I've been through that with Florida, and it was just too overwhelming for me. And I've tried to explain that to no avail. I really hope I can get through to my parents and my grandparents on my dad's side, but eventually, it may not. I may have to take drastic measures to do so, but I'm really hoping I can somehow get through to them one of these days. For example, I want to write a book. I want to write about my experiences with neurofibromatosis and how I have symptoms of autism and ADHD. That's actually a book that I intend to write, and I have actually been planning it out. And I think that will be a good debut book, because that will be a good book to pass down to my family members, and I'm hoping that will be a more effective way to get them to understand me than just me trying to explain myself. Sometimes really sitting down and really writing in detail, it's a lot easier than verbally just trying to explain yourself. So yeah, but yeah, I remember that argument I had with my mom. She was yelling at me, and I was trying to just defend myself and explain myself. I was crying the entire time. It was not fun. It ruined my whole day. I know that seems dramatic, but that's another thing is, I feel emotions very intensely. If someone yells at me, that'll be enough to make me cry, and it ruins the rest of my day. Now, I know a lot of you are probably going to be like, Shauna, you can't let it affect you this much. It's unhealthy. And you're right, but I honestly cannot help it. But yeah, that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to do this rant, because it's something that weighs me down, honestly. I'm, here and there my dad will bring up wanting to take us on a vacation, and it stays stuck with me, and it stresses me out. One of the reasons why I'm skeptical of my dad retiring in the next 6 to 10 years, I mean, I'll be happy for him because, he won't have to worry about work anymore. He can just focus on hobbies. He could be a Twitch streamer. I do not care. But I'm really worried about him. He's going to want to go on vacations more often. And I want to be excited for that because I want to think of it positively, positively. I want to be like, ooh, my dad is going to take vacations, so my brother will have the house to my brother and I will have the house to ourselves, or just I will have the house to myself if my brother tags along with him. I want to think like that, but I just can't because my dad is insistent that I go on some of these vacations with him. And the last time he brought up Virginia it was just July, actually. July of last year, so it was pretty recently. And he will not stop talking about California. He's brought that up multiple times, and it just stresses me out. And, he has even made insensitive remarks as well. Like, oh, I know you don't like long vacations, but you're just gonna have to suck it up. That's insensitive as hell. I mean, I love my dad and all, don't get me wrong, but he can be pretty insensitive at times. I'm literally trying to figure out a way that I can get out of this. Even if it means, unpacking. Let's say my dad and my Nana have me pack against my will, or for a vacation against my will. I literally have, if I ever get into that situation, I literally have half a mind to just unpack and not get up. Whatever it takes to get, I mean, I'm sorry if I sound disobedient or something, but whatever it takes to get through to my family. Sorry. I was bringing up an old post that relates to what I was talking about, but yeah. He has been really hell-bent on taking me to California. I'm trying to get through to him that I just do not want to go. But, he tends to flip-flop. Sometimes when I talk to him, he assures me that he won't force me to go, but another time he's flat out suck it up. My dad actually brought up wanting to go to California in 2028. I did bring up that I don't want to go, and he did say I could stay home. So well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but oh my god. And so yeah, the next Summer Olympics is gonna be on, in California in 2028. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully my dad remains to it and doesn't force me to go. I mean, the Olympics is pretty interesting, but I don't really care about it that much. I can just, if I really cared about really wanted to watch the Olympics, I can just turn it on TV. I don't think it's worth going halfway across the country for. But yeah, it's just draining for me, vacations. You have to sleep in an unfamiliar place. You have to deal with being on another person's schedule. You have to share a room and sometimes a bed. And sometimes they don't want to do anything, so you just feel kind of bored and understimulated. I don't know. They're just not my vein. I think parents in particular need to understand that vacations are just not for everyone. Now, I am open to trying out a vacation with friends or even a solo vacation. I'm open to trying, a friend, like, going on a vacation alone or, like I said, with friends. That is something I don't mind giving a try. But even then, I would want to start off with something casual and see how I like it. Like I said, baby steps. If I'm gonna want to get out of my comfort zone, I'm gonna want to do it little by little. Just forcing your children, just forcing someone, really far out of their comfort zone against their will, that's not good. Like I said, I understand, parents, they want to create fun ways for them to spend time together and with their children. That's all well and good, but you also have to take certain things into consideration. Simply taking planning like vacations willy-nilly, that's not going to strengthen your relationship with your children. It's going to damage it. If you disregard your children's boundaries, it's going to strain your relationship with them, not strengthen it. It's counterproductive. It's one of those things that's counterproductive. Like, sometimes people do stuff because they have a specific goal in mind, but they don't realize that the outcome will actually be the opposite to that goal. Well, carelessly planning like these really long vacations, that's an example of that, because, parents want to bond with like their, children and other family members. That's a good thing, but not, not letting their children communicate their boundaries to them, that's gonna put a strain on the relationship and your children's mental health. That's why it's it's good to compromise. Like, if you want to take a vacation, but you have a child that might not want to step too far out of their comfort zone, you can take a vacation that's closer to home, and that only lasts, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days. That depends on factors too, but yeah. But yeah, there's not really much else to say. Point is, I find vacations a bit draining. Sometimes I get homesick, and sometimes I get even depressed if I'm away from home for too long. So, yeah. If you're a parent watching this, please let your child communicate their needs to you. But yeah, I think I'm running out of things to say, so I'll just end the video right here. See you guys later. Goodbye.